On September 25th, 2023, I published a video on my channel called "The More You Learn About Fatima, the Less Impressive It Seems." I was and still am very proud of that video. However, some masochistic thomist in my Discord server brought to my attention that I made a few mistakes in that video. See, I'm a big fan of being correct, and so when somebody points out to me that I was wrong about something, and they give me an opportunity to be more correct tomorrow than I was yesterday, I'm all about that. In fact, being more and more correct over time is something that sounds like super appealing to me, and for that reason, I'm a big fan of being corrected, being shown that I was wrong in the past so that I can be more correct tomorrow. In this video, I am going to discuss 3 of the mistakes that I made in "The More That You Learn About the Miracle of Fatima, the Less Impressive It Seems." Then I will discuss why the mistakes that I made change my credence, why maybe they'll change your credence in certain aspects of Fatima, but why it doesn't change my overall conclusion about Fatima. Let's get into it. The first mistake that I will discuss comes from the roughly 30-minute mark into my original video. I will play that clip, and then I will explain the error that I made. This one is pretty straightforward. The children themselves seem to have not seen the miracle of the sun. Catholic media company Alita wrote this article, "Why Sister Lucia Did Not See the Miracle of the Sun at Fatima," and it claims that the children were having visions of Mary with Joseph and the child Jesus, while everybody else was seeing the sun dance. I said this one was simple, and it pretty much is. That Catholic media organization, Alita, claimed that the children did not see the sun dance, that they were only having visions of Mary, Joseph, and the child Jesus, while everyone else was seeing the sun dance. That is false. Alita's article is mistaken, and I did not check the primary source documentation. To correct this, we will look at the primary source documentation. In particular, let's turn to the Critical Documentation of Fatima, Document 18. Document 18, which starts on page 99, is the account of the interrogations of the 3 children by Dr. Manuel Nunes Formigao. In order to be as accurate and complete as possible, I am sharing both the Portuguese version of Critical Documentation of Fatima on the left-hand side of the screen and the English Google Translated version on the right-hand side of the screen. As a general note, Google Translate does do some weird things. In Romance languages, you can omit pronouns if it's obvious who you're talking about. So sometimes you'll see Lucia referring to Our Lady as he in the Google Translated version because Google Translate seems to have defaulted to he instead of she or it when it's ambiguous which one they mean in Portuguese, but it's not really ambiguous because you can tell by the context clues, and Google Translate just doesn't understand context like that. But there's other things too where it actually cuts off the very top and the very bottom of the page sometimes, mostly just the top. But as an example, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen that page 99, it says document 18 up here, but then on page 99 in the English translated version, document 18 is cut off. That will come into, that will actually matter more in the future, but for now, I just wanted to show you that we are on page 99 in Critical Documentation of Fatima. This is the literary writings of the interrogation made of the 3 visionaries, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, by Dr. Manuel Nunes Formigao on his 4th visit to Fatima, and this occurred on the 19th of October, so 6 days after the sun danced. Okay. In order to get to the first part that I am particularly interested in, we go to the bottom of page 100 and the top of page 101. Allow me to scroll down on both pages. Okay, so right here, Olhaste para ele, that is where Dr. Formigao asks Lucia, did you look at it? It being translated into English as him. Again, that's like a weird artifact. I believe if there are native Portuguese speakers who are watching, please correct me if I am wrong. But look at this. Did you look at it? And what is it? Right above the previous question was, did you know when the signal should start in the sun? To which Lucia says, no. Did you look at it? Referring to the sun. Did you look at ele? Referring to soul. And the response here, which is actually cut off in the English version, which is why I have both. Look at this. Olhe, parasia que era a lua. And that's cut off here. But you can put this into Google Translate, which I'll actually do right now. But I can tell you that this is, so did you look at it? I looked. That's just how you would say yes. Like it's another way of saying yes in Portuguese. So did you look at it, referring to the sun? Yes, I looked. It looked like the moon. And again, let's go to Google Translate. And I'm going to have to type it in because look what happens if I try. This is why it gets cut off in the Google Translated PDF. It just comes up like weird. I don't know why that happens, but I can just type in, oh yeah, and it always assumes that this is Finnish. So sorry while I set this to Portuguese. Okay, so I looked. Parecia que era a lua. There we go. I looked. It looked like it was the moon. So that's a little interesting. Lucia is directly asked by Dr. Formigao, did you look at the sun? And Lucia says, yes, I did look at the sun. It looked like the moon. And that's interesting. And so why did you look at the sun? I looked because all those people told them to look at the sun. Again, I think that's like a weird translation thing. But clearly, Lucia did look at the sun, and it did look different. It didn't look like the normal sun. It looked like the moon. This is perhaps a little weird, given that the Alida article says that that Lucia saw nothing at all. Well, apparently the sun looked like the moon, so that's something. But maybe you hear this and you say, sure, Lucia looked at the sun and thought it looked like the moon. That certainly isn't the same thing as seeing the sun dance, though. So maybe Lucia really didn't see the miracle of the sun at all. She just saw the sun looking like the moon. And indeed, if you read Lucia's memoirs, she never mentions the sun dancing when she describes the events of October 13th, 1917. And my response to that is, sure, maybe Lucia actually didn't see the sun dance, but I'm still wrong. And Alita, the Catholic source that I used, is still wrong. In order to find out why I'm still wrong, even if I do grant to you that Lucia really did not see the miracle of the sun because she said that it looked like the moon, in order to prove that, we are going to need to look at where Dr. Formigao interrogates Francisco. Francisco's interview starts at the top of page 102. Here it says the second interrogation of Francisco. And again, look, that's cut off in the English version, so that's why it's important to look at both. But to find where Dr. Formigao asks Francisco about the moon, we actually have to scroll down a little bit more at the bottom of page 102. Viste os cineas no sol, o que fue que viste? Did you see the signs in the sun? What did you see? And again, look, this is cut off at the top of the page here, but olhe, e vi que o sol andava a roda, parecia uma roda de fogo. So that is going to mean, yes, I did look, and I saw that the sun was rolling around. It looked like a fiery wheel, a wheel of fire. And again, to Google Translate we go. It starts with that same word, olhe, I looked. Olhe, e vi que o sol andava a roda, parecia uma roda de fogo. I looked and saw that the sun was moving around. It seemed like a wheel of fire. So there you have it. I mean, I said that the children, none of them, saw the miracle of the sun. They didn't see the sun dance. Even if Lucia didn't see it, Francisco definitely saw it because he's reporting that the sun was rolling around and it looked like a wheel of fire. Okay, Just to really drive this point home, though, let's take a look at the final interrogation of the three, Jacinta's interrogation. Jacinta's interrogation begins on page 103. You can see that right here. This is where the interrogation begins. And on page 103, the conversation is recorded like this. Did you look at the sun? That's right here. And let me grab that over here. Orhaste para o sol? Did you look at the sun? Olhe, I looked. Yep, I looked. Y o que viste? And what did you see? Vi o sol encarnado, I'm not going to say that right, encarnado, verde y de otras cores e vi que andaba a roda. So there's that andava a roda again, which is like rolling around or moving around. And look what she's saying here. The sun looked red and green and other colors, right? Hold on. The sun looked red and green and other colors, and I saw that it was moving around. Yep. So, okay. Jacinta, just like Francisco, saw something. She even goes further because Francisco doesn't mention that the sun was changing colors, just that it was a fiery wheel that was rolling around. But Jacinta says that it was a fiery wheel and that it was changing colors, red and green and other colors. So error number one is that I reported that the children, none of the three visionaries, saw the miracle of the sun. And that's absolutely false because at least two of the three did, and perhaps three of the three if you count looking like the moon to be seeing the miracle of the sun. Another mistake that I made in that video comes from around the 32-minute mark into my video, in that same section as before, the section in which I am talking about people who did not see the miracle of the sun, but who theoretically should have. In that section, I said the following. So I have it here in this highlighted portion, and I know that this is not in English, but I did actually run it through Google Translate, and I just posted the translation in here. So if I click on my note right here, and I highly encourage anybody who doesn't believe me to go ahead and grab this document and run it through Google Translate yourself. But here it is. I see the lady. Look in this direction between those two clouds. Don't you see it? And so that's one person in the crowd who's saying, we all looked in that direction indicated, but none of us saw more than clouds. To illustrate what I did that was wrong there. So I didn't say it in that clip that I played, but you can tell if you just watch the video in full that I assume when I'm reading that section about how we all looked in that direction indicated, but none of us saw anything else besides clouds. I thought that was the October apparition. It was not the October apparition. It was the August apparition. I have page 91 pulled up in both Portuguese and English, and I have that text highlighted. None of us saw anything more than just clouds right here. If we scroll up 2 pages, you'll see that this letter begins describing the 13th of August, not the 13th of October. It would appear that in August, and indeed in many of the previous before October apparitions, people in the crowd were claiming to have seen Our Lady, but not very many people, it sounds like. Indeed, the person who wrote this is saying that they did not see Our Lady, and nobody around them besides one person saw Our Lady in August. If you want to find this person's account of what happened in October, you will actually have to scroll to the bottom of page 93. That's where the account of October begins. The 13th of October arrived, and then this person describes how they left for Fatima in the morning, because they're not from Fatima. Then you scroll down to the next page, page 94, and you find that they say, how ironic that I hadn't seen it. It referring to the right here, we arrived at Fatima a half an hour after the wonderful phenomenon occurred, after the maravilloso fenomeno occurred. Why were they late to Fatima? So perhaps you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, it makes sense that they didn't see it. They weren't at the cova in Fatima where everyone was able to see it, right? So of course they didn't see it. not so fast and by my lights. If you want to see where they left from, it looks like they left from Torres Novas, right here. Shortly after leaving Torres Novas, a disaster befell us, which we only miraculously escaped. Our car was buried on the side of the road where the ground was shallow and it began to collapse little by little. One wheel on the front was already in the air, and one behind us was no more than a foot away from the abyss. They needed 2 oxen hitched to the cart to actually free themselves, and because of that long delay, they were late in getting to Fatima, and so they say that they did not see the miracle of the sun. But I hold that they should have seen the miracle of the sun anyway, and here's why. According to Chapter 6 of Meet the Witnesses of the Miracle of the Sun, the area in which the miracle was visible was approximately 600 square miles. Many witnesses who saw the phenomenon from a distance were non-believers who disdained the credulous who had gone to the mountain. Okay, and what about just like what did the miracle actually kind of look like? Well, everything considered, the startling brilliance of the phenomenon, seen over such a great area with such a fearful effect upon all who witnessed it, must have been something akin to the effect of an atomic explosion. Here is a map of Portugal centered on the Cova right outside of Fatima. So you can see that Fatima is right here. And let me just kind of grab a pencil and make it red. So Fatima is right here. But you can see that I've actually centered the map right here, which is actually at the Cova, which was about 2 or 3 kilometers outside of Fatima. And then I put a circle that has an area of 600 square miles. So that radius is like almost 14 miles. It's like 13.8 miles is the radius of that circle around the Cova. Torres Novas is right here. This is the town from which the person who says that they didn't see the miracle because they were late, this is where they departed from. And so they traveled over here. Now, obviously, they didn't go in a straight line. When I plug it in on GPS, it actually looks like the quickest route to take is this highway over here. However, I'm not at all positive that this highway existed 100 years ago. So they may have taken some of these like these back roads over here. But even so, their trail would have been something like this. They were on their way from a town that's within the circle to the Cova at Fatima, which is inside the circle. And if whatever this phenomenon was akin to an atomic explosion, if, like Jacinta said and other people said, that the sun was literally like changing colors and everything was glowing red and glowing green because the sun was turning red and green and stuff like that, that seems like it would be something really, really hard to miss. I have spoken to a few people who are Fatima, like I guess just less skeptical of Fatima than I am. And they're saying things like, well, the map of Portugal is quite mountainous. And indeed it is. Let me pull up a topographic map around Fatima. This is the topography of the area. So here's Torres Novas right down here. And so they'd be traveling something over like this over to Fatima. So there are mountains in the way. You can see, perhaps I have to decrease or just at least move the map a little bit. There you go. Now you can actually see the scale. So like these tall mountains up here are almost 700 meters tall. And Torres Novas itself is, maybe 40 or so. 30 meters above sea level. So there is a big difference. We're talking about, 600 plus meter difference between the highest mountain here. So people are saying, the people who are defenders of Fatima, I should say, are saying that like perhaps the mountains were getting in the way of the people in Torres Novas from having seen it. And if it was, quote, shortly after departing, then maybe they were like right here, like right at the base of this tall mountain, and that would have blocked their view or something like that. And all I can say is that if it was akin to an atomic explosion, if everything was changing colors, if the sun was actually doing something, and this wasn't some kind of just miraculous hallucination that God kind of put into the minds of people, then you would expect for them to be able to see it, whether a mountain was in the way or not. And just to really drive that point home, let's actually look on Google Maps. So here is Torres Novas, and then here's the Cova up here with Fatima being right here. Let's kind of like pick some random spots and drop ourselves down and see what the mountains really look like. What if we just put ourselves like right here, for instance? Okay, so you can tell that the mountains are definitely obscuring like the horizon to some degree, right? Okay, so there's some level of being obscured. Let's just try another place. Like maybe instead of kind of going that straight back road route, maybe they did like take the highway kind of. Let's like put ourselves like right over here maybe. Okay, again, you can see, well, I guess this one's like less bad. You can see mountains off in the distance. The sun is right here though. The sun is quite visible. And the reason I wanted to highlight that the sun is quite visible right here is we have to remember, what time of day did this miracle supposedly occur? It supposedly occurred between 12 noon and 1 o'clock when the sun would be at the highest. Here's the sun again. It's right here. I mean, certainly there are like mountains. See, there are mountains over here. They are obscuring the horizon, those mountains. But between 12 and 1 o'clock, the sun would be immediately overhead. I have been clicking around in Google Maps for some time, and I cannot find a spot where the mountains are so high that you wouldn't be able to see the sun like at all between the hours of 12 and 1 o'clock. I just think it's a little bit ridiculous to say that you would miss the effect of an atomic explosion in the sky because mountains were in the way. I don't find that credible at all. All of that to say is that error 2 is that I did read from the wrong section of that document in Critical Documentation of Fatima. I had thought that I was reading a part where people who should have theoretically seen the miracle of the sun did not. And what I was really reading was referencing the August apparition, not the October apparition. However, if you keep reading, I still hold that this is an example of somebody who should have seen the miracle of the sun and did not. Okay. That was the second mistake. And now let's move on to error number 3. Error number 3 comes from just before that clip that we just went over. It's actually from that Muslim skeptic website. Let me play the clip. And it's from a website called muslimskeptic.com. This website actually does a little bit of translating for me. So for instance, on pages 89 to 91, there is somebody who says that among the more educated classes, no one told me that they had seen the celestial apparition, but it is certain that all of them, learned and unlearned, manifested their faith. So, okay, somebody from pages 89 to 91 claims that nobody among the more educated classes actually saw anything. This mistake is more about context than anything else. The quote that was provided by MuslimSkeptic.com is a real quote. Now, I will add that they quoted it as coming from between pages 89 and 91. The quote is on page 95 in the copy of Critical Documentation of Fatima that I have. I assume that they're just working from another copy with slightly different page numbering. Regardless, the quote itself is real, but the celestial apparition might not be the miracle of the sun. Let's get a little bit more context by reading the few preceding paragraphs. Arriving in Fatima, I tried to see people I know. By the way, this is the same person who did not see the miracle of the sun because they arrived late. This is the same person. How ironic that I hadn't seen it because I arrived 30 minutes late. So arriving in Fatima, I tried to see people I know to exchange impressions. Everyone tells me the same thing. Everyone saw it. But what did they see? I ask them, and they say, "We saw the sun covered as if by a silver plate, in a constant rotation movement, sending out red, yellow, and purple rays and seeming to detach itself from the sky and approach the earth." And who says this? Everyone. Perhaps hyperbole, but let's keep reading. I spoke to the people and they told me the same thing, although in other words, they told me that they saw Our Lady, Saint Joseph, and the baby Jesus. And I know, and then it gets cut off here again, this part isn't as important down here. Then he says, right here, all of the celestial court, so the entire celestial court, while they had seen the sun. Now, I didn't believe in such a vision. Okay. So they had a vision of the entire celestial court while they had seen the sun. I didn't believe in such a vision. It is true that it is possible that they had thought that they had seen it. Suggestion, perhaps. Our people, generally very ignorant, are very gullible, and it would be easy for them to convince themselves that they really saw what they wanted to see. It is even thanks to this ease of conviction that sometimes demagogic doctrines have been heard and believed by them, by the people here. Among the more educated classes, nobody told me they had seen the celestial apparition. But it is certain that everyone, educated or uneducated, expressed their faith. Okay, so what is the celestial apparition? Is the celestial apparition identical to the celestial court? The celestial court seemingly only refers to the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, and the child Jesus, the vision of the Holy Family. The vision of the Holy Family is the celestial court. Then there's also the sun dancing. Everybody told me that they saw the sun dance. And then everybody also said that they had seen Our Lady, St. Joseph, and the baby Jesus. But then it is true that everyone here is gullible, according to the author. And in the more educated classes, nobody had told me that they had seen the celestial apparition. So I don't know if the celestial apparition is referring to the sun dancing. Now, it is important to note that this exact same author previously on page 89 uses the term celestial apparition to refer to just the Blessed Virgin Mary appearing to the children every single month. So if the celestial apparition can refer to just the Blessed Virgin Mary appearing, it seems totally reasonable to think that the celestial apparition in October might only refer to the celestial court referenced 2 paragraphs above, and the celestial court is the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, and the child Jesus, the Holy Family. I'm not necessarily coming down on one side or the other. It is like weird that the author immediately goes on to talk about how our people are generally very ignorant and very gullible. So I don't totally know if the celestial apparition is referring to the miracle of the sun and the celestial court, or just the celestial court. But all of that context is left out of the Muslim skeptic quote. And I think that's important because I think it's reasonable for somebody to make the argument that the celestial apparition refers only to the celestial court, and that the author is not trying to say that among the more educated classes, nobody told them that they had not seen the sun dance. I think that's reasonable. And so error number 3 was that I took the Muslim skeptic quote at face value without looking at the context. And I think that the context does really change that quote significantly. That was the third and the final error from my original Fatima video that I'm going to cover in this video. Note how I stated that. I am not saying that that is definitely the last error in my original Fatima video. It's quite possible that there are more. And the masochistic Thomist, who I mentioned earlier, is not done with a complete review. And so I may find more, and I may need to make another correction video. And if I do, that's awesome. I mean, I love being more and more right over time. And so my masochistic Thomist friend is helping me to be more and more correct over time. And that's awesome. A couple final thoughts here before I wrap up. My first final thought is my masochistic Thomist friend from Discord gave me permission to call him the masochistic Thomist. If you'd like to join my Discord because you found something that you'd like to correct me on, you can. The link is in the description down below. But I asked him if he would like credit in my video, and he said, just refer to me as some masochistic Thomist. And I said, I can do that. That sounds good. Other things, too, is that one claim in particular that I'm really looking into is whether or not there is any evidence of the prophecies being made before they were recorded in the journals. Because Sister Lucia's journals is what I was working from my first video. I am actually finding some evidence in critical documentation of Fatima that says that there were rumblings of these predictions prior to, indeed, immediately after the apparitions ended. But it's a little weird. Let me show you what I mean. So, for instance, here, so this is an interrogation of Lucia by Dr. Manuel Nunez Formigao, who we mentioned earlier in this video. This is the interrogation that took place only 6 days after the final apparition. So it took place on the 19th of October, 1917. And on page 100, you can see here that Dr. Formigao says, what were the words you used to describe what Our Lady said? And Lucia says that Our Lady said that the war ends today. Wait here for your soldiers very soon. And Dr. Formigao even says, wait here for your soldiers or wait here for your soldiers. Militares versus soldados. I don't frankly know what the difference between those two words is. Google Translate used the same word to translate them. But Lucia seems pretty intent that Our Lady said that the war ends today, as in October 13th, 1917. Of course, the war did not end on October 13th, 1917. And Dr. Formigao even says that. He said, the newspaper reports is that there has been fighting after the 13th. How can this be explained if Our Lady said that the war would end today? To which Lucia just says, I don't know. All I know is that I heard her say, again, translated as him, but I believe it's her. All I know is that I heard her say that the war would end on the 13th. I do not know anything more. So that's like a prediction that the war would end like soon. But again, I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. That is where I am focusing more of my time now. But this video is too long as it is, so that's going to have to wait for another video, along with any other corrections that I need to make to my prior video. Another area that I want to focus on in the near future is the connection between Our Lady of Fatima and Our Lady of Mount Carmel. At first, you might think that they have nothing to do with each other, but I have actually been reading a little bit more. And so, for instance, on page 181 of Fatima in Lucia's own words, we can read about. So this is something that Our Lady said to Sister Lucia at one of the apparitions. She said, "Continue to pray the Rosary in order to obtain the end of the war. In October, our Lord will come, as well as Our Lady of Dolors and Our Lady of Carmel. Saint Joseph will appear, and the child Jesus will bless the world. God is pleased with you," etc. But it would appear as if Our Lady of Fatima references Our Lady of Mount Carmel to Sister Lucia in one of the apparitions. Now, I bring this up because I recently did a video on the scapular and Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And probably unsurprisingly, I was skeptical of Our Lady of Mount Carmel and the scapular just in general. But if you are somebody who was thinking to yourself, well, I definitely do believe in Fatima, but I definitely don't believe in Mount Carmel, perhaps now either your credence in Mount Carmel should increase or your credence in Fatima should decrease, I guess. It seems like your credence in Fatima should probably... if you believe in Fatima, that should bolster your belief in Mount Carmel, I suppose. So that's just another area of focus for the future for another video. Again, I could spend the rest of my career only making videos about Fatima, and I will keep on making videos to make sure that I correct mistakes that have to be corrected. But there's just so much here that you can't possibly fit everything into one video. So, audience, if you spotted a mistake that you think that I made, please let me know. Again, you can let me know over Discord, or you can reach out to me over email. My email and my Discord are both linked in the description down below. And until next time. So I was editing this video and I was watching the beginning where I said that I would give like my updated credences and like my updated overall opinion about Fatima, and I realized I never did that, and then I just ended the video. So this is my updated credence and my like updated final thoughts about Fatima. So like credences, the corrections that I made Fatima like my credence in Fatima increased, if that makes sense, as it probably should, right? So you think that there were more people who like didn't see anything, and then there's fewer people who didn't see anything. Okay, so it increased the credence. Now, did it increase the credence so much that I'm now a believer in like Fatima like writ large? No. I still think that there are problems. So obviously the first correction that I made was just, hey, like at least 2 more people than I previously thought have attested to seeing something. Something else is that, like for the second mistake that I made, even though that was like a legitimate mistake. I was reading the August apparition as if it was October, but then if you keep reading, I am convinced that they still didn't see anything. So like I was almost accidentally right, if that makes sense. And they should have seen something. And then that Muslim skeptic thing, it's like, yeah, okay, that should also change your credence as well. But the basic facts haven't changed. The basic facts are still the predictions were either wrong or late or both. Lots of people saw something, but not everyone did. And among the people who did see something, they reported like very different experiences. From like what we looked at here is that Lucia said that the sun just kind of looked like the moon, which it can do if it's kind of like hiding behind clouds and stuff anyway. And then other people are straight up saying that, the world was turning different colors. And something that I didn't get to in this video as well is that the amount of time that this thing lasted is it depends on who you ask. There's somebody, and I plan on going into this more in a future video, but there are people who say that it only lasted for a few seconds, and then there are other sources that say that it lasted for 10 minutes. So like that's that's like wildly different. So something else that I'm working on right now is I'm just creating like a whole list of like actual quotes from people who were there and saw something. And so I'll be interested to see like how different all the various quotes are. Common themes are that the sun kind of looked like the moon, that it was shaking, that things were turning colors. I guess those are like the main couple things. But not everybody saw that. And so it'll be interesting to see like how many people saw what, and like just kind of get all the different accounts. So yeah, I'm still of the belief that something happened at Fatima in 1917, like some kind of weird solar thing. I still don't think it was a sundog because like I don't think a sundog like accurately describes what we have records of people saying. I think that something happened. I think that whatever it was, though, was not nearly as spectacular as some people said. And I think that the spectacularness of whatever happened was kind of like played up over time. Like the fish that you caught and it was this big, but then you tell the story and the next time it's this big, and the next time you tell the story it's this big, and the next time you tell the story it's this big. Until all of a sudden, by the 100th time that you told the story, the fish is like the biggest fish that the world has ever seen. I suspect that something like that happened with Fatima, where something really did happen, but I don't know what, and the story just got exaggerated as like more and more people told each other. That's what I expect. But again, all of that, I still kind of have like my work cut out for me, I guess, in terms of like demonstrating that to be the case. This video was just me correcting some prior mistakes, and that's going to be it. So credence changed, not sufficiently to like, completely flip my opinion, but credence definitely changed. Thanks everybody, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.